Welcome to Restoring Men in History. Rob Schneider was on campus for Turning Point. We got some clips from that, fantastic clips. I think you will really enjoy them and find them edifying. And some clips from him giving a speech for Turning Point, which is just an outstanding speech. So we'll give you clips from that. Freedom, free speech, standing against tyranny lawfully and peacefully. I think we all have to do that, and we all have to be mentally prepared. Hope this helps. I think it will help. Hear his clips. Let's go into clip one. Rob Schneider, go.
Opinions more. How has that personally affected you in terms of like your career and personal life?
It has. It's eliminated some potential for me to get work in Hollywood. But have you seen any great movies from Hollywood recently? I haven't. It is going to cost you to speak your mind. But at a certain point, people have to stand up because it'll cost you more to let your rights be usurped and taken away. Discuss, debate, come up with the best ideas, and then figure out a way to do it. You know, I'm going to make movies here without them, without Hollywood. I'll find out a way, or I won't, and I'll figure out something else to do. But let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to sit and be silenced and say I'm not going to speak my mind, because I do believe that we have a chance to do something special. It's worth whatever movies that they don't want to hire me for. Thank you.
True, right? It can cost you to stand for your freedoms. But I would ask this, what is life like without freedoms? What would that be like, and how much would that cost you to have your rights be usurped from government? So you have to stand lawfully and peacefully. Imagine having to use a digital ID with some kind of government-sponsored digital currency, and then they cut you off. You can't buy anything, or you have to buy what they want. That's not much freedom. So if you don't stand and speak out now, you can lose your freedoms. Patrick Henry said this, one of my favorite guys. Patrick Henry is so incredible. I always suggest you read his biography. Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Fantastic words, right? And he meant it. Patrick Henry was willing and ready to die for liberty. Let's go on to the next clip. Go.
I will say that the P. Diddy white parties are going to be orange now. I've never been to any of those parties. I didn't know about them. But I will say you have to know them by their actions. Mm-hmm. And their actions seem to be of lies. Not being welcome in Hollywood anymore has been the greatest thing that ever happened, because for me, this country and a chance to speak up for and stand up for continued freedom and for your young voices and your opportunities so that you can live in the freest country, the freest experiment in history, in the history of the world, that is worth me not ever making Deuce Bigalow 3, 4, and 5.
So isn't this fantastic? I just love his passion. And he's taking a stand. And he's willing to give up some money to do it. If you like this subject, subscribe, like, comment. And not all men will sacrifice giving up money and what they do, especially when they love it, for their country. He loves this country, America, and it's nice to see him speaking out and be willing to sacrifice money. It is the greatest country in the world if we, keep it. So you and me, we all have to sacrifice to maintain our freedoms here. They come with a cost. They come with a price. Look at England and Europe, and we don't want to be them, right? And I feel badly for the people there, but we want more freedom, right? Let's go on to the next clip. Go.
The knowledge on if they want to transition on what they want to do.
If I have a boy and he thinks he's a pirate, do I have the right to cut off his knee and take an eye out and give him an eye patch?
I think once it gets to that certain point.
A certain point? Like, what's the point where I can cut off my son's knee and say, because he thinks he's a pirate?
I think that's purely between the parent and the child.
Well, I don't think a parent should be allowed to do that.
You should have the option to go be educated and then still go and make the choice that you want to make.
Okay,
After
not
you
at
get
14.
that
If you are under 25 years old, they don't even let you rent a car in this state. What does Avis, Enterprise, and Hertz know that the medical establishment seems so blissfully ignorant about? You are not a good decision maker at 14. You turn 18, you cut off any part you want, and I hope that you don't.
So he's exactly correct, right? And Brian and I have talked about this, right? Remember Brian from the group, he's like, if a kid believes he's Superman and wants to jump off a building, and I've said that as well, we both said it, you don't let the kid jump off the building, right? They need direction. Children need direction, not confusion. They need leadership. When they get into a fantasy, you don't indulge them and allow them to jump off a building acting like they can fly like Superman. There are factions pushing to go around parents and move power where? To the state. Notice there are factions always trying to move more and more power to the state or to the world, one world government or whatever it is, but to the state, right? Here in America, there are factions in California and other areas trying to move powers away from parents and direction away from the parents to direction and control by the state, and that is very dangerous. Parents must give direction. Let's go on to the next clip. Go.
Will President Trump and this movement be just a minor setback, a speed bump to the eventual global tyranny of social credit systems where every transaction made by citizens will be tracked and approved or unapproved by banks and by government that tracks everything that each and every one of us say and do? Could the United States and this greatest experiment in freedom the world has ever known be just this 250-year blip in human history enjoyed by the very few and fortunate in world history before the human race returned to feudalism?
So this is where we need to stand, right? Standing now against digital ID and some kind of government-sponsored digital currency and social credit score. They will not stop, so what do we have to be? They are what? They are continually working on their goals. So we have to be what? Vigilant. Patrick Henry talked about that. Our guy, right? Our freedom guy, Patrick Henry. We love that guy. And I think it's the line, right, for this video now that I think of it right now. Be vigilant for your freedom. So we're going to continue to say that through this video. Be vigilant for your freedom. Let's go on to the next clip. Go.
America was built on the freedom to question our government, and we must ensure that we don't let that principle slide. Dissent, to disagree, and your right to speak out, to protest, to challenge authority without fear of censorship or government reprisals is essential to our liberty. We need to hear what Thomas Massie has to say always. Boo all you want. That's the beauty of this country, isn't it? I support it. I support your boo, but let's debate it.
So this is an enormous point. The founders, the ratifiers, the men who built this country believed you had the right to question your government and policy. They questioned a king, right? Broke away from king and parliament of England. Unheard of at the time. What those men did was so courageous to stand up against that. The ratifiers and founders stood for freedom, liberty, self-control. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. George Mason and others worked on the Virginia State Constitution before the Declaration. So we have the right to disagree with policies, with laws, to call the federal government out, and should be lawfully and peacefully when they go beyond their enumerated powers. When the state government goes beyond the powers given by the state constitution, we should call that out, or you should call that out in your state. You have the right to disagree with laws, policies, and when your state goes beyond their state constitution, or when the federal government goes beyond their enumerated powers. So voice. You can post on social media if you think Congress is going too far. If you think spending $37 trillion is too much, you can say it out loud. If you think that's causing inflation, if you think that's harming your capability to buy a home because of all the inflation and regulations coming from state governments, local governments, federal government, you can call that out. You can argue with that. George Washington said this, if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. George Washington. Let's go on to the next clip for freedom. Go. 1505 to 1529. 1505 to 1529. And again, exactly, you must be able to challenge authority. The founders wanted that. The ratifiers wanted that. Without fear of what? Censorship or reprisal. And they wrote it in, right? It's in the Bill of Rights, restraining the federal government. And it was ratified. That is America. And that's a large part of what America makes America great. Freedom to think as you will and to speak as you think are means indispensable to the discovery and spread of political truth. Louis Brandeis. Let's go on to the next clip. Free speech, go.
Free speech, the open marketplace of ideas. This is what made our country great. The fact that you could boo something I say and that I could disagree with you is going to always lead America to a better place than silencing each other.
Yes, free speech helped make this the greatest country. Always look, too, and watch for whom is trying to silence you. Which people in government, it's going to be both sides of the aisle, are trying to silence you, right? Those in power. It's a good way, it's an easier way to keep power if you can silence your opposition. And the incumbents have the advantage, right? Tyrants and people in government and others that want control or more power may try to silence you, and probably will. So watch out for Big Brother and big government. Going on to the next clip, go.
Because to not air our grievances is what the left has been trying to do and will continue to do. The left has been flirting with socialism and communism, which will always promise utopia, but always deliver tyranny, famine, and mass murder. But we should know better. There is no such place as utopia. The word utopia quite literally comes from the Greek, meaning no place. That's why you're not going to find it. The left thought that if they could impose all their values on the rest of us, they could achieve paradise. They lost the art of disagreement. They started calling everyone fascists for taking an alternative view. They wanted to censor the internet, to carve out exceptions in the First Amendment by calling it hate speech.
Exactly. We don't want either side trying to make exceptions, right? We don't want the uniparty doing it. We don't want the right or left, whichever you believe in. We want the right to be able to lawfully and peacefully debate all the issues. And that's the way a republic can stand, and the only way. Ben Franklin printed an essay. We don't know if he wrote it for sure. Some people attribute it to him, but he did print it, and it sounds like him. Freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved, and tyranny is erected on its ruins. Republics derive their strength and vigor from a popular examination into the actions and to the action of their magistrates. Great quote and true. Let's go on to the next clip. Go. 16.
When Galileo was held under house arrest, that was hate speech too. He was a minority voice saying all the elites had got it wrong, and he turned out to be right. A coherent society is all about messy negotiations. It's about that disagreement. It's about debate. It's about annoying each other by challenging each other's certainties. Democracy without disagreement isn't democracy at all. So, let's not make those same mistakes again. America, for all its imperfections, is still the greatest hope for freedom the world has ever known.
And so watch out, look at what the so-called elites say and what they say, and let's go on to the next clip right away. We've got to get going, go.
So let's agree that it's okay to disagree, that no opinions, no ideas, no challenges should be off the table in a free society. If we tolerate the silencing of anyone, no matter how terrible we find their ideas, we are establishing that one day it will be us who will be the ones silenced. As Thomas Paine said, he that would make his own liberty secure must guard even his enemy from oppression. For if he violates this duty, he establishes a precedent that will reach to himself.
So again, you've got to watch the state leaders, the factions, the organizations, the all these institutions, you've got to watch for whom might be restraining your speech, right? California, we talked about the law. I'm not going to go into it all. They're trying to pass a law that would fine social media companies. You've got some people wanting to take Section 230 away. And you got to watch the leaders or people in both parties that it might behoove to limit your speech and keep the people in power that they wish to have there, right? Big donors might wish certain people in power, and the more you can challenge them and debate them and bring up ideas, their ideas may be wrong and you may expose them, right? So it may benefit the people in power. I believe it benefits the people in power to limit free speech, right? So watch both parties, guard your liberties. Let's go on to the next clip. Go.
But we must be vigilant. There will be no Marines from some other country to land on our beaches to save our ass. No other country will offer us a Marshall Plan. We, you and I, and all of us, we are it. America is God's blueprint for humanity to live in prosperity and liberty. Because America recognizes the dignity of the individual and that he is made in God's image and has inalienable rights.
So it is up to whom? It is up to us, me, you, and everybody. We have to protect those inalienable rights. Our rights don't come from government, right? They come from God. And we must protect them lawfully and peacefully. Thomas Jefferson wrote Uriah Forest in 1787. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Who's he talking about? The people, us. Thank you. If you like this subject, subscribe, like, and comment. Have a magnificent day.